Randomness has a few deep secrets. Secrets that even some of the most learned individuals perhaps never yet realized. What do we mean when we say something is random? We throw the word around often enough, but what does it really mean? A coin toss, a music playlist on shuffle, black and white static noise on a TV screen, randomly choosing a number, picking a single piece of M&Ms, or Skittles from a jar, blindly aiming your bow and arrow up into the air when you shoot. But if you stop and look closely, none of those examples are describing the same thing. Not truly.
Things that are different are not the same.
Here's the first secret. Randomness doesn't have a body on its own. And randomness comes in many flavors. Yes, there is a certain underlying rule that we can apply like a filter or lens to our given perspective towards various factors and variables. But here's the problem. We use the word random like it's one stable static set thing with one clear-cut use case and definition. But it's not. Randomness depends entirely on context, scope, and perspective. It depends on specifically what we are looking at, and who is looking. It's not a universal constant, because it's not consistently the same thing. It comes in many forms. It's a shapeshifter to the situation at hand. So let's break it down. The second secret is that the etymology reveals the chaos. Originally and historically, the word random didn't exactly mean what it means today. The word comes from the old French randir, meaning to rush or to run fast. Like someone panicking that they overslept for work, so they are rushing and running fast, almost perhaps to the point of being reckless and uncareful. In the Middle Ages, someone doing something at random was doing it blindly without real aim, maybe without full knowledge, like closing your eyes and choosing eeny, meeny, miny, mo. An archer shooting arrows at random wasn't being fair, he was being directionless. It was about unpredictability, lack of control, not about equal opportunity or fair draws, just a pure you don't know where it's going to end up. Knowledge about the result was unknown. It was seemingly random. But there it is, right there. The secret scope of randomness already shows its face. It was hidden in the knowledge. If you could somehow predict it, then it wasn't random. The third secret, randomness is epistemic. So wait, whether it's random depends on whether you have a real knowing about the system. So even in this older context and use of the word random, it's based on someone's personal knowledge and predictability. Then we started formalizing probability. Pascal, Fermat, Laplace. By the 1700s and 1800s, randomness started getting numbers and metrics attached to it. Not just, I don't know, it's unknown. But now, I can model what I don't know, and learn to know it more. That's when randomness shifted from chaos to statistical fairness. We started small and worked upwards. Now we could say that a fair coin has two outcomes, an even split of chance, 50-50. We could run simulations, make predictions from them. Randomness became something you could foresee and control in bulk. Secret 4. Fairness is not the same as unpredictability. By the 20th century, random really started to mean something else. Every outcome has an equal chance, the same fair chance. Every constituent part of the system in question has the same shot at getting picked. That's not simply just unpredictability, that's symmetry. The fifth secret. Randomness is a programmed illusion. Then came computers, and randomness got redefined again, this time by machines. Computers can't be truly random, they say. They're ultimately deterministic by nature, but they can simulate randomness. Pseudo-random number generators. Algorithms that spit out results that look random, but ultimately aren't really. So now randomness in computing means this. Given a certain bounded set, every possible outcome has equal probability. That's it. That's what random means in code. So now when your music app shuffles songs, it's doing a flat draw. That's not ultimate deep randomness, it's controlled variation. But this is where the cracks start to show. Secret 6. All randomness is scoped. Here's another secret. Random doesn't mean anything on its own. Contextually, it only means something when you define what it is you're drawing from. Randomness is always scoped. It depends on the boundaries you've set and how you're looking at it. Let's say you're drawing from a bag of M&Ms. There are maybe 30 candies, 5 or 6 colors. Shaking the bag and grabbing one is random, but it's limited, bounded, finite. There are so many other different forms random could take depending on what exactly we are talking about specifically. Now think of static on an old TV. Hundreds of black and white pixels flickering each second. There's no pattern of information, no true underlying shape, just noise. That's still random, but in a different way. It's not just some fair draw, it's an unintelligible flood of mixed signals, a breakdown of recognizable structure. Now scale up our example a level. Imagine programming a computer to start generating a new image every new frame, with each and every pixel assigned a random RGB value in 64-bit color. A rainbow of madness. That's trillions of colors possible per pixel, across millions of adjacent pixels. You could run that generator seemingly forever and almost never get a meaningful image. But every possible picture image ever exists in that space of possibility. The Mona Lisa is in there, your family portrait is in there. All sacred geometry, all profanity, all dreams, all nightmares. So what's random now? Each pixel? The whole image? The fact that it's buried in a possibility space too big to ever fully explore? This is where scope becomes the whole point. Randomness is simply just a measure of your current perspective, your current knowledge. What looks random from down here might be fully ordered from a higher frame. Now think about numbers. If I say pick a number, you immediately think between 1 and 10, or 1 and 100, because that's how we're trained. But randomness doesn't care about what you're used to. On the infinite number line, every number, no matter how big or small, is equally likely or unlikely. You could just as easily draw the number 1 or 10 than a number with 10,000 zeros following it. Same odds, infinite space, no favorites. Here's another secret I've realized, my 7th secret. So here's the catch. You can't evenly draw from infinity. Uniform distribution doesn't work across an unbounded infinite set. That's a mathematical impossibility. You cannot equally consider all numbers, because infinite has no end. Therefore, the moment that you start to consider choosing a number, you would never stop considering an even chance across all numbers. All numbers in this context must have a set limit, a range, a boundary we can consider. So every time we say random number, we're lying a little. When we do things on computers with random numbers, we're always choosing a bounded range. We're always shrinking the scope, limiting ourselves to a selection, to a defined set. Again, randomness isn't real on its own. It's always built inside a container, a boundary, a defined system. It's a rule and a descriptive tool. The 8th secret. Randomness is knowledge-dependent, subjective, and observer-based. So how do computers fake randomness? They use seeds. Maybe from something constantly changing like the system clock, with milliseconds zooming by at incredible speeds. A random draw of the clock time would yield a seemingly random set of numbers as a seed. And all possible clock time is a looping cycle, at some point repeating, but it's an outside variable feeding in. If it's from outside the program, does that make it random? Kind of. Yes and no. You see its scope. It just means the randomness comes from a broader outside system. Now let's say that system is another computer, or a known input. Suddenly, it's not that unpredictable. If I know what time the seed was taken, I could reconstruct the same random values. So is it really random? Not absolutely. Just random to you. It depends on what you know, your specific context. If the program gets its randomness from another computer, but you have no clue what computer, from where, or what data, then it is random to you, but maybe not to the person with insider knowledge. So it's subjective to your perspective. If I give you a number from an RNG and you have no clue what algorithm was used or what the seed was, then yeah, that result looks random to you. But to someone with access to the internals, it's not random at all. It's deterministic. It's reproducible. It's just hidden behind a veil of unknowns. So what counts as truly random? Depends. Is it coming from outside the system entirely? Is it unpredictable even with full knowledge? Quantum decay? Cosmic rays? Maybe. But even then, we only call those things random because we haven't cracked their deeper pattern yet. So randomness is always scoped to your knowledge, your frame, your access. The more you know, the less random it becomes. The less you know, the more it feels like chaos. Surprise? It was never about the system itself. It was about what you can or can't predict. And this brings us to a deeper insight. Most all of what we call random is just structure we haven't traced back and recognized yet. This is where chaos theory enters. Simple deterministic systems can produce results that look wildly random because they're sensitive to initial starting conditions, weather, population dynamics, fluid flow, all of it. Start the program again with the same initial conditions. It plays out the exact same way. Canonize it and play it 100 times. It loses its random, becomes predictable. It's not randomness, it's complexity. Sometimes randomness is just a signal with a trail too long for us to see. A 3D spiral flattened into a 2D squiggle wave, or a fractal zoomed way too far in. The word random becomes a placeholder label for too many variables to consider all the origins of. For saying, I don't get it yet, or that was unexpected. Random, then, is any surprise. My 9th secret: entropy is not meaning. Then there's entropy, informational entropy. Information theory tried to redefine randomness again. Claude Shannon showed within a specific mathematical context that higher entropy means higher unpredictability. The idea was, the more unexpected the message, the more novel each symbol, the more information it carries. A string like 00000000000 doesn't hold any surprises. It says either nothing or just one thing. It's just repetition. But a chaotic, messy-looking string like 8FHDJ4Y9TH0023 has shock value. It's different. It's harder to compress. And in Shannon's model, that made it more informative, even if the information was meaningless. But here's where that model breaks. A string that's pure chaos, like just completely uncorrelated, patternless noise. Also doesn't really say anything. It's more surprising, sure. But it doesn't mean anything. Just like how a uniform string is too simple to say anything either. A totally chaotic one is potentially too jumbled to say anything. And likened to the milk pouring paradox lesson in balance, you can't extract meaningful signal from either extreme. So here's the quote-unquote problem with Shannon's model. It assumes information is tied directly to surprise, to entropy. But meaning doesn't come from surprise or entropy on its own. It comes from the structure you can distinguish from memory. A totally garbled string might have high entropy, but low recognizability. Zero meaning. So here's my redefinition, maybe an assertion. Information isn't the symbol. It isn't the entropy. It isn't the surprise. Information is the recognized difference between expectation and outcome, measured inside the observer. The differences are measured and checked against a preconceived database. Does this match? What does this now mean? You don't decode meaning by looking at the message alone. You decode it by filtering that message through your own memory, history, language, and capacity for pattern recognition. A truly modern information theory must stop pretending information lives in the signal itself. It lives in the relationship between signal and mind, between perception and self. Entropy still plays a role, but it's not the whole equation. Surprise only matters if there's someone there to be surprised. So here's my little piece. Information equals difference times recognition. Information equals contrast times understanding. No recognition, no information, just lonely noise in the void. To be fair, Shannon himself never claimed to define meaning. His work was about transmission, how efficiently a message could be encoded, stored, compressed, and sent across a channel. He focused on uncertainty and symbol predication, not interpretation. Meaning itself was not part of his math, it was beyond his scope. But somewhere along the way, many forgot that. But meaning doesn't come from surprise or entropy on its own. It comes from the structure you can distinguish from memory. Information doesn't live in the symbol itself. It lives in you, in your ability to distinguish, decode, recognize, interpret, and assign meaning. Secret 10. Informational entropy, then is also observer relative. In other words, informational entropy is also observer dependent, just like randomness. The more context you have, the less entropy you experience, the more predictable something becomes. But if you have no context or memory, even the most structured things look like chaos or noise. So maybe information isn't on the far end of high entropy. Maybe it's on the knife's edge, right at that sweet spot between total order and total disorder. A kind of balance point. Too simple and repetitious, and there's nothing new to learn. Too complex and jumbled, and you can't extract anything meaningful. But right in the middle, that's where the meaningful signals live. That's where the patterns meet the mind. Secret 11. Randomness is hidden structure and camouflage. So randomness and chaos aren't the opposite of meaning. It's where meaning can emerge. It's the raw clay of signal. If it's all pattern, you've seen it once. You've seen it a million times. If it's all randomness, you don't recognize the pattern yet, other than the uniform pattern of randomness. Finally, let's talk about the observer. Randomness isn't in the object or system itself only, it's hiding in the relationship. Between you and the system, between what you can know and what you can't know, between what you can measure and cannot measure. If you knew the seed to the algorithm, the result isn't random. If you're outside the system, maybe you can see the cause, but inside it, what might be determined looks like a roll of the dice. To an all-encompassing, omniscient mind, nothing is random. To a limited little meat brain like us, almost everything is. So randomness is a reflection of scope, of access, of dimensional perspective. It's not a property of nature. It can't be nailed down or measured once and for all. It's a shadow cast by your current level of understanding and positioning within the system. Final secret. Randomness is a veil for truth, not a truth itself. So next time someone says, "That was random," ask, random to whom? In what system? What variables? From what set? And to whose knowledge and to what observers? Because randomness isn't the opposite of structure. It's the knife's edge where structure hasn't been seen yet. Not noise, but pre-structure. It's signal waiting to be decoded. It's the sweet sound of possibility beneath the illusion of certainty. Because certainty is the real illusion. That you know how it all works. That you can predict it all. That you've seen the entire picture. So maybe randomness isn't some glitch in the system. Maybe it is the system, seen from the wrong angle, or not far enough back to see the full scope. It's not about chaos versus order. It's about what you're able to recognize in the moment. Randomness is the placeholder we use when we haven't yet solved the pattern. It's a name we give to the gap between what's happening and what we can or can't predict. Zoom out far enough, and what once looked like noise starts forming constellations. So don't be so quick to call it meaningless. Don't confuse unpredictability with lack of intelligence. Because randomness isn't the absence of order, it's the camouflage of deeper structure. Structure hiding in plain sight. The question isn't, is this random? It's, what about this system do I not yet understand? What layer of this system am I missing? What scope haven't I stepped into yet? What context haven't I realized I'm in? What is the limitation and boundary of this relationship? That's not the end of randomness. That's the beginning of understanding. And that's where the real mystery begins.